you are going to get lucky, but you have to give yourself the opportunity to be lucky. You have to be in the position to ride a wave. You don't know when the wave's going to come, but you need to have something to ride the wave with.
What do you reckon would have happened if they pulled the plug at 5 mil just now?
It's like anything. If you give your all and you will it to happen, you can make it happen. Like, we had no alternative to this thing happening, so we just pushed for it.
He moved across 3 countries before he turned 20, built a business with his brothers, and sold it for $180 million. He's currently an AFR Young Rich lister. But behind the headlines was burnout, survival, and a near collapse during COVID. No backup plan, just pressure, and the will to swing for the fences.
We're living in the time where it's like the best time to start a company, in my opinion. When you have nothing to lose, it's almost like a superpower. Because at the end of the day,
All right, guys, let's get straight into another episode of Point 01 with some of the most amazing people in Australia. Today we have Jacques Greeff, episode 9. Let's rock and roll with this one. This one's a really interesting episode because I've been following along your story, your brother's story, looking at Real Base's story as well. It's been fascinating. I think you guys have had a lot of publicity in the last couple of months too, which is cool. But also on top of that, you create your own content, which is blowing up, which is great. And not just you, but your whole team. So Jacques, you have a really fascinating story, originally from South Africa, went to New Zealand and then to Australia. On Point 01, we always like to talk and, dive deep with our guests into the sort of psyche and mindset behind their business and their success. You and your brother built a business, sold it for brothers. You and your brothers built a business, sold it for what, 180 mil 3 years ago?
2022, yeah.
About 3 years ago. Great Aussie success story. And you work with your brothers, which is very interesting. I work with my brother as well for some projects. Sometimes we clash, sometimes we don't. Sometimes there's great chemistry, sometimes there's not. So I'm sure you've gone through that yourself.
Yes.
And a lot of people, a big philosophy in business that you get taught very early on is like, don't work with family, don't work with friends.
Yes.
What was it like with you then, growing up with your brothers and then, moving different countries and then now starting multi-million dollar businesses and you guys are doing new projects together as well? What was that like?
It was the best, to be honest. It was absolutely the best. I think when we were young, we were thick as thieves. Like, we really just had each other because obviously when you migrate to a new country, you got no friends. So my brothers are only friends.
Yeah.
And so that really, we created like a real strong bond in the early years. Then through the teenage years, we kind of all went and did our own things. And it was really like early 20s, late teens, where we were all in different phases of our life, and it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do for business? I went my own way, started doing real estate work with my wife, and those two, like Frank became a chef, and my eldest brother was just really big into software, so he did his own coding stuff, but he was also doing real estate photography, and it was kind of like through all this, us trying our own different bits and pieces, that then it became apparent that like we're going to do something together because we all kind of started working in a similar direction, and it was like, okay, well, let's just formalize this and become a three-way partnership and see what we can do.
That's actually really interesting because obviously Frank became a chef, which is very different to what you and your oldest brother were doing. He's in software, but also in real estate. You were in real estate photography. What was that kind of like? What made you go into the photography business?
So originally our parents came to Australia and they bought a photography franchise.
Oh, right.
And they started that as a business, and we just got involved as a way to make money. So as my eldest brother just got a paycheck. I'll do some shoots. I was like, okay, I'll do some floor plans. And then me and my wife bought into a franchise.
Yeah,
so
right.
We actually
so a separate franchise.
Yeah, like we just ran a little franchise under that same brand. And we just did photography and floor plans together. It was like, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I did university for a year and just absolutely hated that.
What degree did you go into?
I did a Bachelor of Science.
Oh, same.
Yeah.
I actually finished mine. It took me 4 years instead of 3.
Well done. I did 6 months and I was like, this is not for me. I loved like psychology. I liked some of it, but it was just going nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. Like first year science for me was really bad. People think I'm smart because I went to like a selective school here. And so, it's always theoretically you're smart. But first year in science, you have to study 10 units and I failed 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
I got a letter from the chancellor. It was like, you fail one more, we're kicking you out. And I'm like, fuck, that was intense.
Yeah.
So science also wasn't for me at the beginning. Then I realized, you know what? It's a test for myself for discipline. And, I want to make my parents proud. So being Asian, if you don't if you don't succeed in the education pathway, you get disowned.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just finish it for the parents and see how we go.
Yeah.
But no, that's cool. It's good that you did a science.
Yeah, if I could have racked up a HEX debt, I probably would have done it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I couldn't. We had to pay per
Oh,
semester,
really?
And I was like, well,
Okay.
this is going to cost so much money. I'll just drop out and start working.
Well, you're lucky you didn't rack up the HEX debt
Yeah.
because the indexation is just pumping everyone. But, you know, regardless, that's good. It's good. What's your thoughts on uni then? Do you think uni is necessary to be, you know, successful, or do you think, you know, there's no place for it in this day and age?
I think if you asked me this question like 3 or 4 years ago, I'd say university has a place. Like obviously you're going to get formalized education, mostly just because you can say I've done something, and employers are looking at it and going, okay, that's kind of like the badge of merit that you've done something, that, you know, you've done something to completion. If you ask me that now, I'd say there's nothing worse you could spend your money on, a university, unless you want to become a doctor, engineer, you know, the standard stuff.
Absolutely, yep.
If you're going to do like a creative writing thing or a Bachelor of Arts, you're throwing money in the bin, especially with the way that AI is going. You know,
I think I'm in absolute agreement with that.
Yeah, it's a bit dangerous because even employers are now making that shift, right? I think I saw a stat the other day. It was like 1 in 5 people use their university degrees today. So you've got 4 out of 5 people that are going to university, completing their entire degree, spending a bunch of money, racking up a huge debt, and then not using it. That was like not only a waste of time, waste of money, but you've just like completely, you know, gone the wrong direction. And that's scary. And I think that's only going to get probably worse as we, you know, move with AI. And you can basically get bespoke learning on the go. You know, I can ask ChatGPT to make me a course and I want to learn something specific, and it will come out with a, you know, the amazing framework for me to learn, and I can just use that. So,
And then YouTube supports all of that.
So YouTube is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing as free content. There's millions and millions of hours of free content that you can go and learn, and it's like I'm engaging in this.
That's
whereas like university is like you're telling me something in a framework that probably doesn't even suit the world. I mean, you think of even computer science, like you can learn coding, and by the time you've learnt it, it's redundant. And
That's
you
right. That's
come
right.
out the other end, and it's like, well, all those frameworks don't even apply anymore. And the way that it's going, you know, that language is now old. Everyone's doing this now. So you're kind of just chasing a moving target.
I agree. I mean, with the speed at how fast the world is transforming now, and you guys are building something really cool with AI right now. I've been watching you and your staff. Your staff's creating some great content, by the way. Props to them.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
Shout outs.
Yeah, I know. Literally shout outs. They're doing fantastic in the content space.
Yeah.
I think content's such a big thing, and it's really interesting because you came from a position where it's like photography, right? That's very still. You're doing floor plans, very still stuff. Now everything's moving. It's all videos. It's all fast-paced content. It's all, you know, pump things out short form, and then you're also creating long form content now, which is really high production. When it came to going down that sort of pathway, did you find passion in that creative side, or was that kind of like I need the creative side to kind of build my business?
Yeah, so not overly like passionate about the creative side. I think what happened is when me and Frank, like post exit, Frank went really, really hard on content for his cookbook. He wanted to raise $1 million for charity, and he was like, the best way to do that is obviously build a personal brand, and you've got distribution. And we were having a discussion like midway through last year, and it was like, what is the world actually going to look like when AI is in everything? Like, what are you going to be able to do to stand out? You know, even when we started our company, it was like, well, if you just wrote really, really nice software that's easy for people to use, and you focus on a customer experience, you can be a fantastically profitable business just because you put in those fundamentals. Now, with the way AI works, is I can build an app for myself, for my exact use case, using AI, and I don't need to use a SaaS platform that's going to charge me $50 a month. I can just build what I want. And I think that's going to happen for everyone. There's not going to be, you know, like a software platform that multiple people use. It's just going to be like, I build what I need for myself.
Using different AI
just
tools.
all these different tools, and you bring them together. So, you know, that is going to become like the playing field is going to be so level. So what are the things that you can do or invest in that have a long-term impact on your business? One of them is content distribution.
Yeah.
It's not about, you know, like who you know, it's about who knows you. You know, like people say, like, I saw that video, so they ask you the question and you're now the guy. That distribution is going to be, you know, that's the moat now. And AI, again, it's like understanding AI and putting it in your business from, you know, ground zero. That's going to give you flexibility that big companies won't have. Because big companies, they've got to go, okay, we've got 150 to 1,000 employees. I want to put in AI. Now you've got to go through a committee. You've got to go get it approved by the board. You've got all these roadblocks, data security. team of 2, you're just like, cool, let's just use this new
It's
AI
like, fuck
tool.
it, let's just connect
Let's
A
just
to
go.
B and let's just go.
Let's just go. So those are the real 2 big bets. It's like, well, you need the distribution, so you need to have content that people are drawn to, and then you need to be able to make a business that is completely interwoven with AI from day one. There's not going to be businesses that are successful that don't have that in them, because again, the market's going to dictate. Like, if you can run a business with 10 people and the other person runs the same business with 100, you can just be cheaper.
100%. I mean, look at OnlyFans, right? OnlyFans has what, like a staffing team of 30 people or something like that, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business. Yeah, exactly, the icon, the OnlyFans, right? But yeah, it is fascinating. And bring on that point, actually, a lot of companies now, obviously, well-established companies, they're doing good money. Even companies that are doing $1 million a year, for example, right? Still technically a small business. Yeah. But sometimes they're already kind of over-bloated, right? And to add the implementation of AI requires a lot of effort and energy to get into it, because we're talking about this off podcast earlier. And so, for example, someone like myself, if I were to investigate and study the AI platform or the different platforms and different tools available, I'll need to take a significant time out of my working day, which, you know, where I'm operating certain different things, to then study AI and then potentially to implement, test, and experiment. What's your take on that? Because there's going to be a lot of owners and a lot of directors out there, especially small businesses, maybe a 2-3-man team or a 4-man team. They're going to have to take out a lot of time to invest into AI, and a lot of people aren't going to do it, right? We had a quick chat about it. So do you think that impact is going to be huge? And I foresee there's definitely an opportunity that's going to open up from that, right? People coming in to implement AI systems. But what's it going to be like for business owners moving forward the next 5 years? Because I feel like new startups right now are going to absolutely crush, because like you said, ground up AI implementation. But older businesses, 10, 15, 20-year-old businesses to implement AI, big investment. What's it going to look like?
I mean, that's going to be the tough one, right? Like, if you the concept of a moat, you know, you could have a moat because your brand was really strong. You could have a moat because your technology has been developed for the last 20 years. Like, in the age of the internet, it's like, well, you've just been developing for so long. You've just built all these amazing features. You've got all these customers. That was a moat. Nowadays, it's like, if you don't adapt, someone can eat your lunch so quick. You know, like it used to take, it's going to be 5 years until they get to this tech level. Now it's like, well, it can be 6 months. And so you see companies that are going from like nothing to $1 billion valuation in 2 years. Like, that trajectory is just getting sharper and sharper and sharper, which means like they can disrupt you quicker and quicker and quicker. So if you don't adapt, if you don't bring in AI into your business, like the most obvious one I always see is like, people have huge teams for support. They have huge offshore teams for like basic admin roles. They have these huge teams doing these basic tasks, and like, we're too busy to implement AI. Sure, that's fine. That's not a problem. But someone else is going to come along, and they're just going to start taking your market share. And then when you do adapt, it'll be like the whole Blockbuster thing.
It's too late. It's too late.
It's too late. The other person has velocity now. They've got customers. So I think the big challenge is people recognizing very early on. And I've spoken to some absolute huge businesses that are like, we're taking a big part of our team. We're like creating a fully enclosed sector here. We're going to disrupt ourselves. That's how everyone should be thinking.
Love that.
I'm going to disrupt my entire business model with a tiny team using AI.
I love that.
Right. And if you are like, that shouldn't be like a negative as an entrepreneur. That should be like something that's exciting. You almost get to go back to the startup and be like, let's try something scrappy and exciting. You know, you can, and if you've got the blessing in the big business to do that, that's when those amazing results can happen. So I think it's going to be like with the internet age. Like, people were like, it's funny, people were laughing about the internet, saying it's going to, you know, the fax machine. Why would you want to disrupt that?
That's right.
It'll be very similar. You got the early adopters that'll get a lot of the great results. They'll win, and then you'll get people that will adopt it, you know, in the middle towards the end. They'll still survive. They'll be okay, but you've just got to act like you don't have. The problem is, you don't have to come in and be like, AI my old business. Just take one little sliver and say, I don't like doing this task. It feels repetitive. Emailing, scheduling, whatever. Just make that automated. It's a tiny little bit.
Interesting. So I've actually been really fascinated with AI. The reason why is I had a cousin of mine. He went to Stanford. So a very smart kid. He was machine learning. He's got his PhD in his mid-20s. Wow. Genius. Absolute genius. And he was sending rockets to space with his professors. Like, they were scanning agriculture stuff. Incredible stuff. Wow. So I was exposed to it a very long time ago. And it's always been like, that's something that's not exposed to the public, right? But now AI is accessible to the public, and it's evolved very, very rapidly in a very short span of time, as we know. I forgot the name of the law, but you know how when, processes and stuff double every couple of years, etc.
Yeah.
Forgot the name. Someone can correct me. But yeah, that's the extent of my science background now. But yeah, I mean, AI is absolutely transformed really, really quickly. And a lot of people are still arguing, AI tools aren't where they need to be yet. I've obviously seen what your team has been doing, which is fascinating, especially with AI agents. It's actually because of your team that I started to investigate that a lot myself and see how I could implement that.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that with AI tools and the maturity that it's at now? How sort of usable and feasible are these tools in terms of integrating into businesses to help transform certain components? It might not, like you said, might not need to be the whole business, but certain aspects of a business which is super repetitive.
Yeah.
How sort of well polished are these tools now, in your opinion?
It's honestly just getting better and better. Like that's the thing. Like if you hired someone, like an employee, and after a week you go, they're not good enough, I'm going to fire them because they're only doing a job at 60%. Well, they're learning the job. You've got to have some leeway. You've got to have some grace period. You can't implement an AI tool and a day later be like, well, it's not solving every single problem I could ever think about.
Yeah, like, no, fuck that.
And then
Cancel
just ditch
subscription.
it. Yeah, and then just ditch it, right? Like, I think where it's going, and it's what's really exciting, like we were just talking earlier about what Google's even put out recently, which is a marketplace for AI agents. So instead of having to come up with workflows and things yourself, what you're going to be able to do is just grab someone who's pre-built it, and you're just going to go out the box. And that eventually will be what the norm is. And then it'll be integrated into like the operating system layer of basically your computer. So anything in Google, it'll just have access to and it'll just do it.
Yeah.
So like, is it perfect? Absolutely not. But is it improving at a rate that like, honestly, if you just check back in 2 weeks, it'll have improved? It's improving that fast that you can basically take a bet. Like I'll get used to it now. Yeah. I'll put up with the teething issues. I'll put up with the things that it just hallucinates and goes completely off track, knowing that there are so many smart people working on this, they're so heavily funded that in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever the time is, it's going to get better. And I just benefit from it getting better. I don't have to do anything. I've implemented it and now it's just smarter. I haven't had to like redo anything. And then when the bigger players come in, they're just making it easier and easier and easier for us. So eventually it's just like, it's going to be a no-brainer. Yeah. And like, I mean, when did ChatGPT launch? It was like two and a half years ago.
Probably 2.5 years ago.
And everyone was laughing at how dumb it was.
Yeah.
And now I'm like sitting there and I can't even have a thought without using it to check.
And, yeah, correct. And it keeps improving as well.
It just keeps improving. Like the image stuff comes out and it's amazing. And we're like, oh, it's not perfect yet. And then next version comes out.
And then
it's
the
even
videos.
better.
And then now they do videos. And it's it's pretty intense, like generative AI and all that sort of stuff. I think it's a fascinating field.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you in everything you're saying there, because I've people that will miss the boat in this opportunity. And I think the problem is a lot of people are a little bit older now in business. They kind of can't wrap their head around how fast it's changing.
Yeah.
And it is changing like super rapidly.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. And so what sort of tools are you guys kind of implementing in your business so far? Because you're integrating from day one, which is fascinating, which is great. What sort of tools do you kind of recommend for a lot of people out there that's going to be watching and listening to start with? Obviously, we've got ChatGPT. That's the base.
So I mean, so in terms of the agent stuff, one of the early ones that we had issues with was, I mean, Google's probably already fixed this, but it was like emailing. So flagging emails and putting them in the correct buckets. We needed help, like even drafting responses. Like, I don't know about you, but we get hundreds of emails a day and you're sitting there replying to things. Okay, well, why can't we just draft up a response? You can review it and just hit send. That's going to save me hours and hours of time. And then you've got content. So a good one, like even for something like this, a podcast, right? You've got guests, you've got scheduling, you've got research that you need to do, you've got questionnaires, you've got all these kind of things. What does it look like if you can actually just say, like, this is the guest, which we do, and then you say, okay, give me all of their like background. I want you to draft up sample questions in the style of Stephen Bartlett or Hormozy, so that when I'm ready to go and ask you all these questions, or you're ready to ask your guest questions, you've got all this background done, you've taken all that and you've gone, okay, well, what have they been asked? What can I ask that's unique? And then you've got your sample questions written out.
Which is cool.
And that content, I know it's like probably like you want to have some creativity, but there's also stuff that's really mundane and boring. So you're like, okay, well, let's just try and get content ideas. Let's try and so there's things like that we're implementing. Again, like scheduling, like your calendars can be a nightmare. So anything like an EA is doing, was doing for us in a bigger business, we're just bringing in right from the beginning of this business.
I love that.
And we're just experimenting. The thing is, it's really, really fun when you haven't got a big business because you can experiment without breaking anything.
That's right.
You
That's
just
right.
muck around and it doesn't work, you just try again. If it's harder when you've got hundreds and hundreds of people and you can actually make a material impact to the bottom line.
Absolutely. And obviously with a smaller business, if you do break something, you can see it straight away. Whereas in a big business, if you break something, it'll probably take a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
and then at that stage, you're like, guys, why is our revenue down
Yeah.
fucking $2 million?
We've made a mistake.
Yeah, something's gone wrong.
AI's gone rogue.
AI's fired 16 human staff this week. What's going on, guys?
Exactly.
Do you think that's ever going to be the case? Like, do you think AI will replace like a large majority of workforces? And people are going to be scared of this question, right? I think a lot of people who are uneducated in the space are going to be absolutely horrified. They think the big scary robot, the big AI is going to come in, wipe out a lot of jobs. I personally think it's going to wipe out a lot of like the basic level jobs, sort of admin level jobs. But creatives are going to win moving forwards, which is very interesting. And high skilled base, like obviously physical stuff is still going to remain to some extent. But yeah, what's your take on that? Like, because
that's a tricky one because I want to say no. Everyone will just get, reallocated into new roles.
Yeah,
I think the rate at which things are improving is too quick.
humans
we
can't catch up.
We don't have time to adjust. So in our previous business, like I was saying to you, we had a big part of our business in the Philippines doing admin support roles because it was cheap and you could spool up a big team. The problem that AI is presenting is you've got, let's just say a team, 200, 300 people. I could probably replace that for a tenth of the cost. Fairly quickly.
And probably cheaper than a tenth, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we're just being nice. We're just being nice, guys. We're not trying to scare you. We're just being nice.
and then at, let's just say worst case scenario that takes me 6 months to implement, you kind of writings on the wall for all those people. I'd love to be able to say, let's get them new roles in the organization, but that's too much change too rapidly.
And also too many people that you're going to have to retrain from the ground up
Correct.
as well.
Yeah. So like you'll get the best people will be retrained into new roles. That's going to happen because they're great people. They're great for the culture, everything. But as we know in any business, you've probably got, 20% of people are weapons, and then you've got 80% that are kind of just clocking in and clocking out. Capitalist society, these ruthless capitalist pigs. I'm not one of them.
Jacques is definitely not one of them.
Maybe I am. You just look at the numbers, right?
Yeah,
and decisions are made at a board level where this at arm's length to the people in the business.
Correct.
That you get these decisions because they look at the P&L and they say, well, let's just cut that job done, tick the box. And you can just displace 40% of a business like that. And then it's like, if all these big companies are doing it, or even medium companies are doing it, what is that big chasm going to look like? I don't know. I think it's a bit scary. I think the opportunity, though, like to be, let's be optimistic about it, is because there are so many amazing tools and you've got access to technology that we just didn't have 5 to 10 years ago. If you are displaced from a role, you've lost your job, you've got nothing to lose. Just start your own business. You can start a business and get 10 customers and your way. You know what I mean? You've got the opportunity to be like, I was doing a specific role, solving a very specific problem in a business. Is that problem in a business something that other businesses experience? 100% probably most likely, right? Now you can spool up a little MVP using one of these no-code platforms for $100 a month. You can spool up an MVP in a couple of hours.
That's right.
That was just not possible before. You had to develop a thing, you had to go find a developer, you had to pay a bunch of money, and then
50 grand for a test.
Exactly. And it never worked. Now you could do I've got 10 ideas. Let me spool up 10 of these and just see what comes out of it. You've got all the tech. You can use the tech and actually, this is I would encourage most people to, if you are displaced, try your own thing, try a business. It's, we're living in the time where it's like the best time to start a company, in my opinion.
I agree. And so a lot of what we talk about on the podcast comes down to mindset, right? I want to dive into that in a second, but right now it's a pretty interesting conversation about AI. So I want to keep diving into this. With the AI side of things, we all know, and I'm sure you know as well, is the better the prompt, the better the response, right? And the better the user, the better the tool is going to perform. I actually really want to bounce this with you as well, is because it's quite fascinating, right? Because you're looking at this and you're saying how, with the entire workforce, it's going to change. We're going to retrain people like that. However, I feel like there's going to be, I want to say an intellect gap. I would say maybe a sort of creative thinking and problem solving gap, because that comes down to a mentality thing, which we might not be able to train and retrain people to do. What do you think is going to happen there, right? Because you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to lose their jobs, and I'm sure all these multi-billion-dollar companies are going to implement AI. They all have their own AI firms and, you know, AI branches. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs over the next couple of years to AI tools, but they're not going to have that sort of intellectual capability to adapt to utilizing these tools. What do you reckon is going to happen to this giant workforce that's going to come out unskilled, technically unskilled for the modern day, with a university degree, right? And then now they're going to go into the field, and what options are available for them? Like it's where do you go? You might have been like the senior marketing director of a company making 200 grand a year, or you might have been even someone in IT making 400 or 500 grand a year. You're coming out and now you're completely useless.
Yeah.
What do you reckon is going to happen there? That's hard.
It's a really tough question, because it will get to a point where like you might have to have governments get involved, because there's such a big spike in unemployment. I hope we don't get there. So just to go back to your earlier point where it's like an intellect gap, it's actually funny when it comes down to prompting. You can ask the AI to make the prompt as well.
Okay.
So like the truth is almost just take your brain and say like, I'm going to surrender to this AI and let it take control of everything. Like just before I got here, I was mucking around with Lovable, which is just an AI coding platform. And it was like, this is how you do this. And I was like, just do it then. My involvement was just saying, you've just given me all the instructions on how to do this thing. Just do it. And it goes, oh, okay, sure. I'll just do that whole thing for you. I didn't even need to be there. And it's the same thing with prompting. Like people think I've got to be this amazing prompt engineer. Ask ChatGPT to be the prompt engineer and create the prompt. And then you feed its prompt back into itself and you get a better result.
Wow.
So your involvement in there is minimal. All you're basically saying is you're the expert. Make it so that an expert can understand it, which is you again.
Yeah.
so realistically, like when it comes down to prompting, there are even like platforms that help you create prompts. I'm not sure if it was Anthropic or Perplexity, but one of them has like makes better prompts for you.
Right.
So we're in that stage now where like prompt engineering was maybe considered a skill.
Yeah. And it's probably going to become a proper like a degree soon, Bachelor of Prompt Engineering.
But even saying that, like you don't even need to worry about prompt engineering, because you can just say like, help me make a good prompt here, and it will do that. And again, it's like from an individual's point of view, like let's just say you have been displaced. You've got so much information to consume at such a low barrier. Like there's no paywalls behind any of this stuff. It's all just getting thrown out for free. You don't even really need to have much of a spark up here to be able to do something. It can basically just give you a step by step, and you can just give it a go.
That's true.
We're basically getting to that level where the human's involvement is the complete other way. We're just like a little robot that's getting instructed.
Yeah, I know. It's
by
flipped.
AI.
Okay, so this is really good, because now this begs the different question, right? Because I have a lot of interns. I have like an internship program where I'd like to train university kids to, think differently to what university teaches them. I think it's important to give them real world skills and knowledge and experience, whereas obviously university is mostly theoretical. So every time I bring in a 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old, so 17 to 21, the only way they can actually get work done is by asking ChatGPT. Yeah. Do you think the reliance on AI is going to get too much at one stage?
It's going to be, again, like our reliance on the internet. No one's like embarrassed about using the internet. But like if you asked like even our parents' generation, like, oh, you don't know that off the top of your head. Like having knowledge stored in your brain was like a sign of being smart. Where an actual sign of being smart is knowing where to look, asking questions. That's actually, it's the inquisitive, like storing information in your brain. Your brain's that's not important, because you're just recalling information that you're a parrot. It's the creative thinking to be like, I'm going to go find the answer. I can ask that person. I can get information here. I can try that. That is the skill. So asking the AI, it's going to become it's the new norm, the new internet. Yeah. But it's fantastic, because in one little command, you've got all the information you need. It's incredible.
I think, from a standpoint of how technology is evolving, I think that's absolutely cool as, right? But I think from a human perspective, it's kind of like, fuck, is everyone just going to be dumb now? Like, are we just going to be like, oh, sorry. Jacques just asked me a question. Give me 1 second. I just pull up ChatGPT and let me figure out an answer. Yeah. And honestly, I'm seeing that with the not millennials. Sorry, that's us. But I'm seeing that with the Gen Zs now. Yeah. And it's literally like they're asking ChatGPT, oh, where should I take my girlfriend on a date?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, bro, come on, can you use your mind? What's a good present for their 21st birthday?
Yes.
It's like, I'm like, is it going to get to a point where now everyone is just so in tune with the AI, where it's like they can't make proper decisions on their own? And I think from a business perspective as entrepreneurs, to be honest, it's quite scary because if we're hiring, for example, executives, C-suite people, co-founders, etc., we don't hire them because of their like physical skill or hard skill. We hire them because of how they think and approach problems.
Yeah.
I reckon that's going to cause a little bit of drama moving forwards. But obviously, there's a bunch of smart people in this world, smart, talented people. But I see in the working force side of things where a lot of people are just coming in, they just want to get a stable job, do their job, get clock in, clock out type. It's going to create a very interesting environment.
Yeah. I mean, really what you're hiring for at the top level is resourcefulness. So you will use the resources available to you to solve a problem. That's it. And are you resourceful? Is AI a resource? Absolutely. Like it's electricity, it's a resource. You
Yes,
use
that's
it,
right.
but no one's like, well, you're so reliant on electricity. Like we're just using tools, and it's like at the highest level, I can give you an outcome, and I can say this is the outcome I want. And ideally, even at the high level, I don't even have to give you the outcome. You're already so ingrained on the right way that you just know what to do. But I can give you an outcome, and you can just figure it out. And AI is a fantastic tool for that. I think people using it, it's not a crutch. I think it's like we've always done this as humans. The internet, same thing. We use technology to improve, and it's like the amount of information that the average person has access to now is incredible,
Insane.
And so like it's the resourceful ones that it's almost like in their nature that'll use it and they will just get ahead. And the people that almost ignore it and don't care, those are the ones that are going to suffer.
I agree.
It's almost the opposite. It's like the more people use it, the better off they'll be. And the Gen Z comment, like, it's so funny because you look at the way that those almost the entrepreneur mindset in Gen Z, they're just getting after it and doing the most random things online and just making money and killing it. And it's almost like they're like, no, the old way doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they've accepted it.
Yeah.
Whereas our generation are caught in this awkward place. We were taught like school, the
Well,
pathway, the system.
How old are you? How old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, so I'm 29, right? So roughly the same sort of lessons and teachings growing up. And I think, yes, you're right. We're like that in-betweener generation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, fuck, we got to go dive into AI. But then you look at how these Gen Z kids use AI and we think we're good. Like we feel like we're smart guys. We build businesses and we're using these tools. And then we look at these kids and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
They're 10 times faster than us.
Exactly.
10 times, better than us at what these new tools are at. And they learn it 10 times faster than us in everything.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fascinating seeing how the world's going to grow and transform in terms of the workplace in the next 10 years.
And the next generation even more so, where they would have used this through the whole schooling process. They would be so ingrained that when they come out the other side, it's going to be a completely, like, that's part of their identity. They use that from the ground up.
Which is crazy. I think this is how our parents used to feel when we
about the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And then now we're sitting here going, wow, I feel like a troglodyte just like listening to the conversations they have.
Exactly.
And I think it's going to be very interesting, especially with what Trump's doing right now after trade war too. I think it's actually going to speed things up in a sense.
Yeah.
A lot of companies are going to be either downsizing and just making it more efficient, which means they're going to cut a lot of the fat out.
There's a need now.
Yeah.
You create a spark for people to go like, okay, now I'll take the time and I'll invest the time into learning and implementing.
Exactly. It's going to be very, very interesting moving forwards for the next couple of years for sure. But let's wind back the clock a bit to Realbase, right? So when you guys first started Realbase, it was just you and your two brothers, or did one of them come through later, or did you start it first? What was that journey?
So the way that we actually started is I was running a signboard business by myself, and my two brothers went down to Melbourne to basically run the exact same business. We all started very similar time. Yeah. They ran a signboard and printing business. So we were doing like manual labor. A real estate agent orders a signboard.
That's the ones at the front of the house which says for sale, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep. So you print that out, you put it on a little frame, you drive it out to the site, and you put it up. Yeah. That's the job.
Okay.
And we had this issue, which was the ordering system that we were using to, like, they put together the design of what they want, the photo and the text, and then ordering these print materials, which just didn't work. Like we were maybe 2 or 3 years into this business.
How big was the business at 2 or 3 years?
We were probably doing about $60,000 a month. So quite
not bad, $500,000 a year.
Good. But the hours and the effort, and you get to the end of the year and your profits, like,
that's right.
That's
right. And were you guys just a 3-man team at that stage, or?
Yeah,
just
you, 3-man team, and we maybe had like a signboard installer or two that was on like part time, or we were cycling through people so crazy because it's like, hey, what's my job? You put up signs out the front of a house.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
are like,
yeah.
"That sounds
And we only need you once a week, maybe once a
sounds
fortnight.
terrible." We're like, yeah, we know we're doing it. We do it every day. It is terrible.
Yeah.
And so we took the time and we were like, okay, well, let's build that ordering platform out because, like, 3 years down the pathway, people would be like, we're like, how many brochures would you like? They're like, I want 250. Like, there wasn't even a column for quantity. That's how pathetic it was. And so we were like, let's build it. And we spent about perfect example, having a brother that can code. We spent about a year coding up this platform, and then we launched it under our own brand. Initially, we were in a franchise, and we said you use the franchise ordering system and branding, and that's you can't control. So we had no control over the way that our customers interacted with us. We just did the end part. And so we're like, we need to control that part so we can improve the customer experience. And so we built the platform. We offered it to the franchise as like a deal for like, we'll build it for you. And they just said no. And we're like, okay, we'll build it for ourselves. We like got ourselves out of our contract. That was terrible.
So you just cut the franchise from there?
Yeah, we just cut the franchise from there, paid out our franchise fees
Bad
a
exit?
year. Bad time because it was like our full franchise fees for the next 1.5 years.
That was the exit clause.
Yeah, and so like we started off, we lost 50% of our revenue on launch day because some customers stayed with the franchise. Because that's where you ordered, and we needed to pay out our franchise fees. So it was like, what the fuck have we done? What have we done here? This was an absolute. We shouldn't have done that. This is a mistake. But we just stuck with it.
And that was back. Let's go back for the time frame because I know you guys went for a very interesting sort of time frame, right? So when was that? 2018?
2015.
2015.
2015 we launched. So 2015 we launched Real Hub, which was okay. This is now an ordering platform to order from your print and signboard services. Essentially, we were the printer as well. So it was like you're ordering from us, but we created a platform that was flexible enough that other printers could use it.
Right. So it's like like a marketplace.
It's like a marketplace, yeah. But we didn't have anyone else on the marketplace.
Marketplace for yourself. It's an Amazon marketplace for Amazon.
Choose your supplier.
Yeah.
Just us.
Yes, that's right.
But it took off because now we could control our customer experience. So if customers had issues with stuff, we could listen to them and we could change it. So in that first year, I was like this on the phone and we were making changes to the platform literally all day. Every day, people would say, I need to change this template. And you're literally sitting there on the phone, talking to them, creating customer relationships now that were way stronger. And we had ownership. So we were like, in that first year, we like doubled our business. And we're off to the races. Now you're getting other suppliers where what happened is we could only service a certain geography with actual physical signboards because how far can you drive? And we'd get to the fringes of that and an agency would be like, well, I want you guys to do it. And we're like, well, let's just get a supplier. And so you start plugging in suppliers in those areas that you can't work. And eventually you've just got hundreds and hundreds of suppliers on there.
So there was actually a lot of other companies doing the exact same things that you guys do.
Like signboards, yeah. So it's like I guess it's like a real estate thing. Like there's a lot of signboard businesses, brochure businesses.
And then they send guys out as well as
like printers. Oh, wow. So it's like it's a thing. But then obviously we expanded into like photographers, people doing floor plans. So now your photographer can finish a shoot and load the photos up to your property. And so what we've created in that is just you've put your property into one spot once and you've gotten all the suppliers to add it in. You don't have to leave. And so we created this like really good lock-in with our customers. And so we scaled that for a couple of years to 2018, 2019, starting to make good money, starting to get some momentum, and then COVID hit. And it was just
wow, that's crazy. During that time, did you guys spend a lot of money on marketing or was it all word of mouth? How did the business scale and grow?
So business to business, it was all sales calls and
who was doing that? You?
Frank, my younger brother.
Frank was doing it.
So I started in the beginning with him, but it became very obvious very quickly that he was a better salesperson.
Yeah, wow.
He just has a way with people. He can make friends with, a gumboot. He's so good. He is so good with people, and he's relentless. So he would go and get a no, and he'd be back the next week, and he'd be trying to make friends with the marketing girl at the front desk, and and then he follows her on Instagram. And he's sends them little presents, and it was that relentlessness because it's the beautiful thing about business to business. You can say that customer is worth X, and you can just focus all your energy on them. So we had these big players that we just. It's not like, B2C where you've just kind of spraying with ads and hoping people come. You can very, very easy identify your market. So we just spent a lot of time and a lot of effort just on our customers. And we basically put them on the board and that's who we're going after. And all of our mental energy was like, we're going to get that contract, the big LJ Hooker contract.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's how you get.
And was this, you mentioned that they were in Melbourne and you were in Sydney. So was this Sydney first or Melbourne first?
So they came back from Melbourne after a year.
Yep.
And then, so they started their own business and I had mine and we merged those two.
Oh, okay.
And then we created our own thing. And we ran that together for a couple of years and then we created Real Hub.
Right. Gotcha. And so now Real Hub, now fast forward, we're now down to 2018, 2019. COVID's just kind of picking up around the world. No one's taking us seriously. And then all of a sudden, bang, lockdowns. What happened there?
So, I mean, we started off 2020. It was so funny. We're like, this is going to be our year. It's going to be our fucking year.
Yeah, because this is the peak year, right? You guys are like peaking
we're like
up.
We're making some huge plays. We brought on a salesman. I think the salary was bigger than all of our salaries.
Exactly. I think people don't realize that a lot of the times our staff make more money than we do.
100%. Yeah. We were the lowest paid in the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's always like that. They're like, oh, you're the boss, but you guys revenue is like 5 million a year. You guys are balling. You're loaded. And then you bring on a sales guy and they're like, I wish I got a pay rise, and they're joking. You're like, I've been eating pasta out of a box for the last 2 years.
Like, you guys must be printing cash. No, we actually share a 2-bedroom apartment. So, 2020, we just thought, like, this is going to be a year. We made some big, like, investments in the business. Mm-hmm. Like, this is going to be a year. Record month, January. Record month, February. And then it was just, like, off a cliff.
Wow.
And it was, like, I think the number was about 90, maybe probably even more than 90% drop in revenue.
What was the revenue before, prior to that? What was like?
I think we were doing, so we at our Feb months, off the top of my head, it was about 150K for the week.
Oh,
so we were getting momentum.
Wow.
It was feeling like we were going to get somewhere.
Yeah, wow.
And then the next week, I think we couldn't even cover payroll, which was maybe like 10, 20 grand.
Jeez.
And it was like in an instance. And we'd built into this moment where we couldn't have any levers to pull. Before we could drop our salaries, we could make when we started our business, like credit card debt, you've got levers because there's only 3 or 4 people. We'd grown to a decent sized team at this point. Yeah. So, obviously we did the salary drop thing, but it was like, that's just a drop in the ocean right now. Yeah. We could barely cover our salaries. And we had such a strong emphasis on wanting to have, our team. We wanted to keep our team employed. We didn't want anyone to be let go. So we're like, well, we'll just basically drop our salaries to nothing and just put everyone on annual leave, like kind of force the annual leave thing. But, it just kept stretching on and, lockdowns got worse and the outlook got worse. We're like, it's going to be a couple of weeks, no problem. Yeah. We can survive that. And it was like, okay, it's going to be longer now. And it was just, we were right at the breaking point, but then an absolute miracle happened. Is our biggest competitor basically walked through the door. They've been hurting just as bad as us, but had even less levers to pull.
Oh my
And they
Lord.
said, can we do a 50-50 merger?
That's so great.
Yeah.
How much bigger were they than you at that stage?
They were significantly bigger. So revenue numbers, I think they were close to 8 times bigger than us.
So they were $1 million a week plus.
Oh yeah, they were doing fantastic. So very, very big, well established, 20 years in the game. They actually suggested a merger. My eldest brother and I were like, that's not going to work. And then Frank was like, well, let's just throw a random airball at them and say it has to be 50-50.
Yeah. Even though they're 10 times bigger.
Even though they're way bigger. Like we were like, I thought they were going to come and murder us. Like I was like,
they're like, we're going to take you out now while you're weak.
Well, exactly. But it turns out they were just as weak and they had less levers to pull. Yeah. So the timing of that, like one of the worst situations in my life was the catalyst to actually one of the best situations in my life.
Yeah, right.
And like the time, like it's so funny. If you look at 2020, it was like literally the worst year of my life and literally the best year of my life. And my daughter was coming. Like my eldest brother had a baby on the way as well. So we were both like, we've got kids coming.
Can't even afford milk.
I literally like I'm down. I've got nothing doing. Business is absolutely in the bin. And through that merger.
This is interesting because talking about that, right? Like the ups and downs. I've been through it myself as well. Like same thing. 2020. That was the year we did our first $1 million, and also we launched a business. We did $1 million within the first year.
Wow.
And then also at the same time, grandfather passed away. Ended a long-term relationship, almost 8 years. Both my dogs passed away within literally 3 months of each other. And then the day my grandpa passed, the day after, we made $1 million. I was like, what do you? How did you manage the emotions? What was that like for you actually? Because I think this is the make and break for a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs, business owners, whatever. How did you manage that going as the man of the family? There's pressures of being the man, being the provider, kids on the way, being a boss, being a CEO, being a friend to your staff members and a leader. What was that mindset like for you? It was literally, we've lost almost everything. Horizon's looking bleak.
Yeah.
Don't know that the merger's coming. Family is growing, not just yours, but also your brothers, because you probably feel responsible for each other's families as well.
Yeah.
What was that kind of like? What was going through your head?
It's so difficult because outwardly you as a leader have to pretend that it's good.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. We're all going to make it.
Yeah.
But me personally started having all these weird coping mechanisms. Like I was starting to drink a bunch more, like, the classic like COVID meltdown that happened where you're trying to pretend everything's fine, but then you can't sleep. And it's like sleepless nights. I think in that period, it was when I lost all my little mental tricks that I used to play on myself. When things were tough, you can always be like, "Oh, come on, guys, let's just hang in there. We got this." Yeah, that was the first time in my life where I actually thought, like, we
hopelessness,
got this.
Yeah.
This is going to be the end for us, and it was kind of like a ticking clock of when that's going to happen. But at the same time, when you get to that point, which I remember so clearly, which was like, we're fucked either way. Why don't we just swing for the fences?
Fair enough.
So it's almost a freeing thing when you're in such a bleak moment where I've got literally nothing to lose because I'm going to lose. Why don't we just start swinging for the fences? And this is one of the reasons we think that merger came across the table is because we started pitching. We said, okay, well, we've got all this time. So do all of our customers.
Yeah.
They're obviously not doing business.
And this is during like peak lockdown, right? Everyone's at home.
Lockdown. Everyone's at home.
Yeah.
Why don't we just start pitching some ridiculous deals to some of these huge customers that were with our competitor? Like, let's just throw some absolutely crazy deals out there. Like, I'm talking like a third of the price. Like, if they took that deal, it would have been an absolute nightmare for us. But like, why not?
Profit margin, $20.
Zero profit margin. We're hemorrhaging money on it.
Yeah,
But they had the time because they had nothing to do to answer our calls. And now we're having conversations with these huge players and trying to come up with all these interesting ways to skin these deals. But they're receptive because they're like trying to save money. And so it was through that process where we just started swinging that you then start feeling like, well, maybe there is a bit of light at the end of this tunnel. Because even if we got this deal and it's massively, like, it's not a great deal, we could figure out a way to make it profitable.
And also you got lifetime value of the customer.
Correct.
If you bring them on board.
Correct. Exactly that. So, I mean, these contracts were like multi-million-dollar contracts a year, $1 million contracts a year. So they were substantial. So even just having that win and the morale around it, or even just them talking about using us, got us a little bit. And then the next day you try again. And then we're on the phone all the time. And then Frank's had this big conversation. He's talking to us. And then, so in that moment, it's like that the despair and the downtimes kind of become background noise. They get normalized. It's like the more you're in this pit of despair, the more it becomes normal to be in the pit of despair. That's the base case.
Yeah, every day you just wake up, it's like, everything's fucked.
Everything's fucked. It's right. But like, well, everything's fucked.
It is what it is.
It's only up from here,
Exactly.
basically, right? And I think that's the thing. Like, when things are really, really, really difficult, it's the shock that's terrible. It's that first shock. You've gone from up here to down here. That there's a moment there where you're like, oh, fuck. Now you kind of move on. And you're just stuck down here.
Yeah.
It's like, what do I have to lose, really? And I think that's kind of the main thing with anyone in, like, being an entrepreneur, trying to do something really, really big. When you have nothing to lose, it's almost like a superpower because at the end of the day, you're fucked. So even if you just get an incremental improvement on what you're doing, great. It's a win.
I think that's great because a lot of people, they go into business and they have a backup plan, right? And I think this is a huge topic around entrepreneurship and business owners is if you have a backup plan, most of the times, you give yourself a way out, right?
Yeah.
You go, everything will still be all right. I still got a degree. I had a 200K corporate job. Like, I can just go back to it whenever I wanted to. You really have to go balls deep in it and just go all in to really push yourself. And I think that's interesting during COVID that you guys, that was your moment where it's like, what, fuck it, we've got nothing to lose, got to go hard. And then when your competitor came around to acquire you, what was that conversation like? How did that happen? Because obviously they're probably looking at their client base and they're going, what the fuck? Everyone should be in lockdown. Why are we losing clients? Not just because of lockdown, but we're losing clients to this other little company over here.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny. When we actually started having those conversations, we realized we were looking at our counterparts in a lot of ways that were just older than us. So they had all the same problems. They had all the same things. It wasn't, when you look at a company from the outside, you don't see the internal workings. You see your own internal workings. You see your ugly things that are happening behind the scenes, and they just look perfect and polished. But when you start opening up and talking, you're like, well, you're just a problem. You've got a lot of problems too. And so, like, it was credit to them. They recognized that we were younger, we were hungrier. It's going to be a race to zero. If we win a big contract, but we've dropped the price down by 30%, 50%, well, then they're going to just try and win the next one. They're going to drop it by 50%, and eventually we're going to race to zero. And they said that, and that's huge. If you can be successful in business, and this is one of the biggest takeaways I have, but you still have the capacity to look at someone else and go like, we're racing to nothing here, guys. They were way bigger than us. They could have crushed us, but they were just like, let's just share the pie and have 50% market share and have, fruitful years out of this instead of just fighting back and forth petty. And so we were like, we were actually, we looked at them and we were like, you guys are very similar to us. You share a lot of the similar values to us. What does it look like if we do this? And we were like, we need to do it quickly because I don't want to string along and, open up our books to you. You open up our books and we do this long due diligence process and you can kind of bleed us out through timing.
Correct.
So we need to do it quick. So by the time we had the conversation, I think it was about August in 2020, we were like merged in the same office by the end of the year, October.
5.
It was like 2 months, 3 months.
3 months.
It was
like
Jesus,
that. That was fast. That's a
very
fast
quickly.
merger.
We were in the same office. We merged the teams. We announced it before it even signed the agreement.
Jeez.
So we were like, we need to do this quickly because we don't want this to be a tactic, stringing us along.
And then you burn us
bleed
out.
us out.
Yeah, because they're going to have more money in the safety.
Correct.
chest than you.
Yeah. So we just went, okay, let's just do it. And it's one of those moments, like people would say, like, that's crazy what you did.
And it's also risky.
Risky,
Ballsy.
but
super ballsy.
What do we have to lose?
Okay, so let's break that open. Let's open that up. So what was the due diligence process like? Because obviously opening books and, I've attempted to do, mergers and acquisitions before as well. What was that process like for you in terms of the DD, right? Because it's at a time where COVID's obviously rough.
Yeah.
So even if you do open the books are pretty empty.
Yeah, the books weren't looking good. To be honest, the DD process was so fast and loose. Our accountants, our lawyers, everyone said to us, "Don't do this. This is wild. Like we can't even validate any of their numbers. It's just here's a spreadsheet of what we've done last year. None of it can be actually like properly tracked and recorded." But we were just like in that moment, we need to do it. Yeah. So like the risk was huge, but then the risk the other way was just as bad.
Correct.
You're running and the bridge behind you's collapsed anyway.
Yeah.
So you've kind of just got to take a leap of faith and hope. And then again, it was like, okay, even if their business is completely fucked, we are young enough with enough energy that we can come in and fully restructure and fix everything. Yeah. But now we've got the ability to have a bit of like, time and thought.
Some cushioning.
Exactly. And so that was huge for us. It's like, even if half of their revenue is fake and, we can take this combined entity and actually turn it into something huge. And that's exactly what we did. We went in there and straight away there's like all these inefficiencies. The thing is, yes, their revenue was 8 times bigger than us, but we were like twice as profitable per person employed. So, we could come in and we could streamline things. We could make things more efficient. Even if, the top line number was fantastic, we will focus on that profit number and we could really fix that.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize as well is revenue is one thing, profit is another.
Exactly.
And profit per employee is also very, very important. And most people don't see that, don't understand. All these TikTok entrepreneurs and Instagram entrepreneurs like those. Yeah, look at this. I made $1 million last month. Yeah, cool story, bro.
Yeah,
great,
exactly.
Good job. And your ad spends $900,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of kids see that, they get so, blindsided by it, and then they buy into a $5,000 course and Bob's your uncle. Exactly. That's how they make money.
Yeah.
It's through the digital courses because it's a 95% margin.
The revenue numbers at the end of the day mean literally nothing. It's how can you optimize that profit and how can you optimize that profit while growing. That's a really difficult equation.
It's very hard.
And that's what I think when you bootstrap a business, one of the biggest lessons you learn is how to make your money work. So yes, you give up the growth trajectory a little bit because you can't just supercharge things.
You can't just dump millions of dollars into marketing.
But at the same time, you're always connecting it to the profit underlying. And so you become so efficient with the way you use money. And that was one of the beauties of our business is we could look at our business at the end of the year and be like, look, we've actually generated profit and we've grown. Double digits, everything's looking great.
Correct.
That's
correct. And I get that as well. I bootstrapped every single one of my businesses. They're all, started them with $1,000, grew them to where they are today. Yeah. So it's hard.
It's so hard.
Such a fucking
It's hard because you're looking around and everyone's just dumping money and raising capital. And
and they're like, yeah, we've just launched US market. We've just launched UK. Yeah. We've just launched this big brand deal. And you know exactly how much it costs to do all of those things. And you're just like, how the fuck did they do it? They just launched last year. They got like massive investors.
We had it's a funny story. We had like a stand-up argument. We had a print room in one room and then an office like this where we were, answering emails and all the rest. And it was so fucking noisy with the printers going off in the back. But we didn't have a door between it. Yeah. And because the door was going to cost us like something like $2,500 a soundproof door. Yeah. It was like the argument and we had to like save up and scrounge every penny so that we could get this fucking
Guys,
door.
we need silence, please. Just do it up.
And it would be like, everyone turn the printers off so we could make a phone call.
Yeah.
But like we were so skint on money and so like everything was such a big decision to spend money that didn't generate money. A
That's
door
right.
doesn't generate money.
I mean, same thing with the studio, right? I mean, I'm doing this podcast for free, essentially, right? And I spent 60 grand on building this, and that's with my own hands. If I hired tradies to come in, it's an $120,000 studio. So I'm like, fuck, every dollar is so important. And I think a lot of people don't respect that or understand that in the online world anyway.
100%.
But true business owners, owner to owner, we all understand, like, fuck, you walk in, you go, yeah, I can see it's a scrappy startup, it's bootstrap. But we know that you're probably more profitable than a lot of bigger businesses out there, which is really interesting. So that acquisition occurred. End of the year, you were in the offices, you guys were merged. What was that experience like? Because it must be pretty difficult to combine with another entity, which is bigger than you, not only in staffing, but revenue and all of that. What was it like kind of merging your staff, getting everyone aligned onto the same values, same business, same journey? And then SOPs as well, right? Systems and processes that would have come along the way would be super different. Probably.
Yeah.
What was it like kind of like merging everything in that sense from an operational and tactical point of view?
It was incredibly difficult, mostly from a people standpoint, because you've controlled your growth. You've probably we had a team of about 50.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we had a team of 400.
Wow.
So now when you are a startup, you are basically the biggest contributor in the business.
Correct.
You know everything, you know all the content.
Correct.
You were there from day one.
Correct.
When you've got 400 people, you can't really be the biggest contributor anymore. So what you have to do is change yourself to become a leader and get the most out of other people. That had to happen very, very quickly, very, very difficult. So all of a sudden, you're giving away a lot of trust. You've got so many people.
The delegation pathway is scary, isn't it?
It's crazy because you've got so many moving parts. You have, like you said, they've got their way of doing it. And the guy's been doing it for 15 years. We haven't even been in business for 15 years. So I'm telling someone who's been doing it for
15 years would have been half your life at that stage too.
I'm telling a guy that's been doing it for literally half my life, that's not the right way. Yeah. And so you've just got it's such an interesting learning experience as a leader is, can you get people to buy into what you think is the right way without telling them or forcing them? Yeah. So you've got to inspire. You've got to be able to let people do their own thing and make mistakes. Very difficult to do. Yeah. And so that was the biggest learning for us, is like all of a sudden you can't be the biggest, worker in the business. Yeah, you have to let other people come up and shine. You're going to get a lot of people that are going to be butthurt.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people now
a lot
are
of
not
salty drama going on. A lot of the guys that are like 50 years old, I've been in this industry more than you've been alive, all right? Listen, I know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And it's like, how much revenue did you generate last year? Oh, that's right. I did 6 times that. So what are you going to say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So difficult, very difficult.
What was it like for you guys then? Who had what role? So there was obviously you, there's Frank, your eldest brother as well. So what sort of roles did you guys end up in?
They let us sort of take over a lot of the operations side of stuff.
Yep.
Their shareholders kind of, I don't want to say took a step back, but they kind of let us implement a lot of our ideas.
Yeah. So they became more like board shareholders board.
They let us, they like from the technology point of view, let us implement a lot of our tech.
Okay.
Our tech was newer. And that's me and my eldest brother. That was kind of our job. We'd spend a lot of time changing the tech and taking 2 businesses that were software businesses and making them one. Very, very difficult to do.
That would be crazy.
And then they said to Frank, okay, we all said to Frank, you're the CEO now. So instead of being like the head of sales at our business, you're the CEO of this whole company. And their CEO stood down essentially.
Wow.
And stood to the side. So I really give them credit there, because they were like, well, we did this merger because we saw you guys are the young, hungry, up and coming people. We're going to let you do what you do best, which is like make these changes. They still had massive roles in the business. Like, we still had their CFO, head of sales still involved. Everything was still great. But we were allowed to kind of like get in there and get our hands dirty and make some changes,
which is good. I think that's very, very good, because obviously one of the scariest things is if you get acquired and then you lose control.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's almost an aggressive takeover at that stage, if that's the case.
Yeah, well, that's what happened next.
Yeah, oh really? Was that what happened next? Okay, all right. Let's proceed with the story. So
that was the merger.
Yeah.
And then in 2022 we got actually acquired by Domain.
Yeah.
Not that's probably wrong saying they did, but again, that was even a bigger beast.
Yeah,
so now we took our business, which was 2 merged entities, and 2 years later we sold it to Domain, and that was a proper acquisition.
And that was a cash sale.
Cash sale.
Yeah. So you guys didn't need a retainer role or anything.
No, we didn't. We wanted to.
Oh, really?
Again, we wanted to. So I wanted to stay on and help, and we had these big vision. We wanted to get involved. But that's even a bigger ship to move.
Yeah, right.
Now they've got 1,000 employees.
Yeah, right.
And so that was a very interesting, again.
So did the actual brand actually just get absorbed into Domain, or is it still real base?
I think think it's still real base.
Still remote? Okay.
Yeah, still real base. So essentially what it is it's all the agent stuff that the agents need, and then there's all the stuff that like the customers need, like from an online looking at real estate portal. The agent stuff is what real base takes control of.
Yep. Gotcha. So yeah, that's really interesting, right? 2022 acquisition, so your merger happened 2020, end of 2020, right? And then 2022 you were then properly acquired.
Yeah.
So what's that gap of a year and a half, maybe?
Yeah.
Year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like? That's a fast turnaround. Man.
Very fast
Very
turnaround.
fast.
Yeah.
2 years. I mean, people think 2 years is a long time. Honestly, 2 years is not in the game of business. It's not really that long.
No.
Right? So what was the business like then? Because COVID was still 2020, 2021 was still kind of tail end of COVID, still happening, still a bit of lockdowns at the very early start of the year.
Yeah.
Did the business pick back up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we all seen the COVID graph. It went like this.
Yeah.
It went like that.
Yeah. Was that exactly what happened
Exactly
as well?
the same. And in real estate specifically, like real estate was like leading the charge. And so it was just record month after record month. And it was an absolute wave. Like, again, life is like this. You need timing. And we got the timing of the century.
You guys literally rode that.
Yeah, exactly. So from the trough to the peak, it was like we doubled. Everything just went absolutely.
Wow. And how fast was that doubling time?
It was month on month. It was like it was just like every month was record month, and we decided, okay, well, we're in something here that's not going to last.
Yeah.
Let's look at selling the business. And while we were selling the business and forecasting and stuff, it was just like, yep, we beat that month that we modeled. Yep, we beat that month.
So you're modeling based on this.
Yeah, and
pumping
the graph was just crazy. So the timing, and I think this is the thing. Advice to anyone doing business: it's like, you are going to get lucky, but you have to give yourself the opportunity to be lucky. You have to be in the position to ride a wave. You don't know when the wave's going to come, but you need to have something to ride the wave with. Because everyone's like, wow, you guys timed that perfectly. It's like, no, I didn't time anything. We were just in the right spot, and the market was doing something that it didn't do, but it probably does once every 10, 20 years. And we decided at that time that, okay, now's the time to exit.
Yeah, wow.
So
there you go. So I think that's really important, because I remember my gym coach used to teach me, it was luck equals when opportunity meets preparedness, right?
Yes.
And you guys were literally prepared, and the opportunity came, and then bang, we call it lucky, and then off you go to the races.
Yes.
So that's cool. $180 million exit. At that stage, what sort of revenue were you guys pulling?
I think we were doing about 40 mil.
40 mil. And then so in terms of a revenue multiple, you're talking about a 4.5x. Did they acquire you based on rev or profit?
Massive acquisitions, what will happen a lot of the times with these big corporate players is strategically, they're not looking at your numbers and past performance. They're looking at strategically what that you can do for them moving forward. Because you can unlock parts of their customer base that they can then instantly turn into multiple millions.
That's right.
Without your product, they can't. So they're paying you, yes, for your previous performance, yes, for the numbers, but they're also paying you for the potential in the future. So you'll see strategic acquisitions in general have a premium because the acquirer can do amazing things with them. Look at Meta or look at Facebook buying Instagram. That was $1 billion for a business doing zero revenue.
Yeah.
But Mark Zuckerberg knows that if I buy Instagram, I'm locking out a potential competitor that can come and eat my lunch 2 years down the track. They're growing at a very good rate. They've got the same customer base. Now look at Instagram. It's like $150 billion.
Yeah, that's right. $1 billion is a bargain.
But at the time, everyone was making fun of him because you're paying money for something that makes no money.
Correct.
But it's like that in all acquisitions that are strategic. You know, if you get private equity come in, they'll look at the books and they'll say, this is what you're worth based on your numbers.
That's right.
That's why you go to a strategic acquirer, because you can help their business.
That's so interesting. So how did that conversation then get initiated then? How did Domain pull you guys up on the radar, or did they reach out? What was that like?
We tried initially to like sell the business ourselves, like
What'd you do? Just DMing people on LinkedIn. Hey guys, I'm doing 40 mil a year. You want to buy me?
Yeah, exactly. You just give it a go. And then we found a broker that was really, really good. Again, he cold DM'd Frank. But through that process, again, big learning that I've learned is if you're selling anything, you're not selling it purely on its merit. You're selling it based on like maybe a little bit of FOMO. So create a process where you've got multiple bidders.
Yeah, right.
And that's really important.
Right.
So we created a process. We created a bidding sort of structure, and we said, okay, we're going to go to market. This is the terms, and we brought all these parties along, and we let them all put in a bid, and then we took 3 parties to the next stage. So it was very like controlled process, but the broker really orchestrated all of that.
So the broker's very, very experienced in it.
Amazing.
And they take, so I think for a lot of people, they probably won't understand this type of level of business. I think in terms of social media world, obviously when all of this gets cut up into shorts and stuff like that, people that are watching it are going to be quite young. They'll see business as the drop shipper, the digital marketer, whatever, right? they'll just see, oh, they make revenue, they run ads, whatever. But from an actual big business standpoint, where you're now going for acquisitions, mergers, all of these sort of things, it's proper big business stuff. What was that process like when you now have a broker that comes to the table? Everyone needs to eat. What was the broker like? Was it a percentage cut? Was it like a bonus structure? How did they
It's
come?
a percentage of the sale, but again, like you said, everyone needs to eat. The process of selling the business cost close to $5 million.
Jesus.
So
is that a tax deduction as well?
you're dealing with lawyers, you're dealing with accountants, you're dealing with the broker. So it's not an easy process. It takes a year. It took us a year.
And $5 million.
And $5 million because you need to get all your numbers in line for the past, right? You've got multiple bidders that are all asking lots of questions.
Yeah.
They'll ask questions as far back as when you started. Like, notice on the board minutes, you guys discussed the internet. Can you give us some more clarity on that? You're like,
they go through that
deep. They go that far back.
Wow.
It's like you've got all this stuff and questions, and it's a process of then forecasting as well, creating the financial modeling. You've got to get multiple rounds of meetings and due diligence. They're looking at your team. They're looking at your tech. They're diving into every single thing in your business.
It makes sense. $100+
because they're spending money, right? And so that process, if you don't have the right team behind you, you're going to completely drown. Because they're also coaching you on how the negotiation is going to work, like what things are kind of non-negotiables and what things are they just adding in.
Scare you, devalue you a little bit, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So how does that process work then? Let's just say, because you guys were merged in. So the previous years of work, minutes, whatever, you were not involved in.
Yeah.
What was that kind of like to go through that, to clean all of that up if there was any stuff that was kind of like not recorded properly?
Yeah. You've got to go through both teams, basically. You go through Campaign Trick, you go through Real Hub, and you just find everything they have questions for. Clean things up that aren't accounted for correctly, because the big problem is accounting standards. You have two different accounting standards, right? When you spend money on tech, as an example, you can't say I spent $100,000 on a new software. You have to say it was $10,000 a month for 12 months. And if you don't recognize it the same way, now that's an issue. So you have to go back and clean that up. So there's a lot of little things that, the list is huge of little things that you've got to do all those things all the time.
Yeah, wow.
So it's a process that if the next business you start thinking that might happen, so you'll get things in a row as you should.
Yes.
But if you don't think about it, you get to the end and people start asking you questions, and it's like, I don't even remember recording.
Exactly. So that's a good one. I think this will be a great, whether it's a digital product that you create in the future, like a founder's playbook for exits, what to think and implement from day one.
Yeah.
From day one, this is how you should record your businesses. Yes. This is what they're going to look for.
Document everything. Document everything.
I think that'd be really interesting. That's a great product, actually, guys. So, whenever Jacques wants to work on it, I'll get AI to work on it.
Oh, mate. Help you with the mental breakdown that happens afterwards.
Oh, yeah. How was that? How was that process? $5 million, a year of time, and were all three brothers involved? Or was
very
it
involved. So
Frank?
took the lead on it, so as the sort of seller's representative.
Yeah.
But you've got this process that's happening in the background, but you still got to run a business.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got customers that are complaining about things, and you're like, please don't leave, because we need you, because we're trying to sell.
Yeah, because your $5 million a year equates to 15
and you
in my
spend
pocket.
that money. You spend the money on the deal selling.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
So if you don't sell, or if you do sell, you spend the money.
Yeah.
Right. That's like your profit for the year is going in the bin. So it's like, at that time, you're stretched so thin, because not only are you running the normal business that's really hard to run, you're also worrying about this stuff that's very up in the air.
Yeah.
You don't know if it's going to go through.
That was so stressful.
And every week it's like, it's looking good. Oh no, they pulled out. Or this person's, they've changed this person internally. Now you've got to redo all the questions. And so you've got these two things that feel like you're stretched. And then you've got this macro layer, which is like probably a month before the deal was meant to be like, okay, it's locked in. Fucking Russia invades Ukraine. And I'm like,
oh no, please guys, just one more month.
Can you not do that right now?
Yeah.
And so it's just like mentally, I don't know, it's like you're running towards a goal, but your bridge is collapsing, so you have no choices.
What an emotional roller coaster that would have been for all of you.
Yeah, we all had mental breakdowns. We all took our turns.
That's great. You're next week, bro. Don't break down this week, please.
It's my turn.
It's my turn. Don't do it. The staff need us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. I think people don't realize how difficult it is, because everyone will see, you guys made 180 mil. You're rich. You guys are AFR rich listeners. You're the best. But people don't realize the whole process leading up to that is incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
Huge investment. What do you reckon would have happened if they pulled the plug and that $5 million just burnt?
That's the thing. You just got to keep keep trying, I guess. Like we didn't have a plan B. It was really like, if this doesn't sell, we're just going to have to keep operating. But I think we exhausted ourselves so much that if it didn't work out, it would have been really hard to recover because you've gone all in. We probably would have tried to negotiate on price and just drop the price down a bit more. But it's like anything. If you give your all and you will it to happen, you can make it happen. You know what I mean? Like, we had no alternative to this thing happening. So we just pushed for it. And a lot of shareholders were like, no, maybe it's not the right time. You know, there's a lot of things that are changing. And we're like, no, we are doing this. We are pushing ourselves to do it, even if it breaks us.
Did anyone come up against it and go, nah, it's not the right time. You guys are making so much money. It's record years. Why would you want to sell? We want to keep this cash flow going.
Yeah. I mean, internally we had that. We were fighting that battle as well every other week.
Oh, really?
Where it's like, with so much fucking effort, I got to answer all these questions. No, let's not do it now.
Yeah, it's like when you apply for an award and they send you like a questionnaire, which is like 400 questions long. And you're just like, for an award, just to kind of go to the dinner.
Exactly.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So, what's life been like now after the exit? Obviously, a lot of headlines. You know, great Aussie success story. There's not many big. I would say in Australia, it's very hard to see businesses crack a lot of 9-figure exits. They come up very fair and few, and usually it's big international acquisitions as well, or strategic acquisitions. What was it like for you post exit then? Because 180 mil, obviously you guys are 50-50 owners, so I'm assuming 90 mil to you guys and 90 to them. Is that how it went? How does that actually work post process? Does that money all get taxed before it gets transferred to you? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be curious, right? Like, you're moving a lot of money. How does that work?
So you check that bank account. You make sure you give the right detail.
Bro, it's my BSB, right?
You check the right BSB. You send it. You make sure.
Yeah.
It's funny. A public company gets announced to the market, but you don't hit the money for 3 months.
Oh.
So there's that period now.
Everyone's like, you're rich.
Yeah,
You're like,
I'm
my
not
bank
rich.
account's still on $2,000.
Exactly. But no, it just comes as one lump sum.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just a straight bang, 90 mil.
Lump sum. So you just get your shares paid out in cash, and then you pay the tax whenever you pay the taxes, 9 months later or whatever. Yeah. But mentally, all of a sudden, it was like you almost lose. You've done one thing for so long.
Yeah.
You've had one train of thought that when you get to the end, you're almost a bit lost. So it's like, yes, we did it. That's amazing. Yeah. But then at the same time, it's a bit like, where am I? It's like, who am I?
Yeah,
I have only had a single train of thought for probably the last 2 years down this process. Now I don't need to have that thought anymore.
Yeah.
So really, like, they say this happens a lot, but you basically come out the other end and you're a bit like figuring out who you are. Yeah, very shell-shocked. And you're trying to get used to like, am I a rich guy now? Am I
rich? Can I go buy Lambos?
Yeah, like, is this my personality now? You try. I'm like, I'm going to try to be a rich guy.
Hey guys, let me show you how to make $1 million. We just made 90 mil in 12 hours. Let me show you how it's done.
Exactly. You're trying to like figure out almost who you are again. And so that first year after exiting, and we still worked for Domain who inquired us. It was very like, it's very interesting learning. Like I was like, okay, I still want to be committed to work, but I couldn't. I was I can't.
Oh, do I need to go to work today?
I just couldn't. I couldn't have the same intensity, and I knew that. And so I decided I'm just going to retire for a year, take a year off, and just do nothing. And that was great. That was like the best thing because I could be like, okay, now what did I say I wanted to do before I when I get rich, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
When I make it, I'm going to.
What was it? What was that first thing you wanted?
I remember, like, I used to always say, like, when I get rich, I'll just go surfing every single day, and I can go surfing in the morning and not have to get out to go to work. Funny thing is, when I could surf every day, I didn't surf. I was like, no, the waves aren't good enough. Now I can be picky all of a sudden.
Whereas back in the day, you're like, oh fuck, is that a little crest right there? I see white. I'm going out.
Exactly. I'll take anything. So it's interesting. One of the big things personally that I wanted to focus on was like I'd just given away so much of my mental health and my physical health during this process. I want to get that back. And so I just wanted to focus purely on, me personally, I can't do a lot of stuff well. I have to do one or two things. And so I was like, I'm going to focus on health. I'm going to focus on family. I'm going to do that like it's my job. Yeah. And that was for me, like I'm going to spend a year literally training like an athlete. Like an athlete.
And then you just finished a marathon yesterday. So I guess it paid off.
Exactly.
It worked out.
That was amazing. So money luckily could afford me that freedom.
Yeah.
And
what was it like during that process? Because obviously health and family is super important. Do you feel like
in that process, obviously a huge portion of stressful years from 2020 to 2022, 2 years, hyper stress, right? Most people probably won't understand that level of stress that goes through your mind. Do you think it had an impact on your family? Or you obviously have a very supportive wife to get to where you are today. How was it like in terms of like relationship, and how was it like in terms of your personal health? Were you kind of like gaining weight, losing weight? What was it kind of like in that process?
I think health-wise, it was mainly mental health.
Yeah.
That was just
Physical still okay.
Physical was okay, but again, it was like if I was in the gym and an email came through,
you
needed attention, I would just be gone, and I'd go back and solve that problem.
Yeah.
So me and Frank would train in the gym, and we'd talk about work.
Yeah.
And as soon as one little thing came in,
You're just like,
well,
yeah,
now I'm
fuck it, I
going
can't
to
be
the
bothered.
office at
Yeah.
6:30
Yeah.
because I need to solve that problem because
Yeah.
it's gotten so deeply ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
So yes, like physical health, like you'd be doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But it wasn't what I wanted. And then the other thing on the other side is the family stuff. It's like my wife never complained once. She just got on with it, and it was like we're gonna get next year is gonna be our year.
Yeah.
We're going to keep investing. We're going to
Wow.
keep trying. And it was like we were living at the time in a 2-bedroom apartment, but, everything's been put into this business. And she never said, like, maybe you should get more money out. Maybe we should go buy a house. It was just like she just got on with it. And I just knew I was building a huge debt there. Like, she would never complain. But me personally, I was like, I'm just not doing what I should be doing.
Because as a man, you're like, I should be a provider. Like, you feel bad, even though sometimes if your partner sits there, they don't complain. And, you obviously, when you married her, you promised her the world and, I love you forever and I'm going to buy you all these nice things, take you out to all these nice dates and stuff. But in the business world, it's kind of like every day you're in the trenches.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as much as you want to support your partner, you just physically and even from a time perspective, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
So your partner's obviously very, very supportive, and I think that's great. And a lot of people out there don't understand that men go for a lot of depression for a very certain reason. And I think this is one of them, that heavy pressure for responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think you would have gone through that stage yourself as well.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's talked about enough from a business point of view as well, how heavy it is to carry that burden of family.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes your partners are great, but reality, it doesn't matter if they say, oh, babe, it's okay. I don't need a nice bag. I don't need a nice car. I don't need a nice house. In your heart, you're already feeling like, I can't provide. I don't feel like the man I should be for you. And I think that's a very deep mental struggle.
Yeah.
So I'm really, it's good to see that you obviously overcame that smash.
Yeah. You build up, you almost mentally in your head create a playbook of what your life should look like. And your wife, or my wife especially, I was like, we're going to get there. This is just part of the playbook. We're going to have to, move into a 2-bedroom apartment with Frank and Holly. Like, we're going to have to downsize and sell the car, but trust me.
Yeah.
And it was always just trust me. Trust me, it's going to be better. But it was getting worse.
Yeah, you're like,
and
oh,
so I'm just like,
you're like sweating.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
sweating.
And then it's like I'm building up this huge debt to her, and I've been writing checks, promises, and things are going to get better. Trust me, it's going to get better. And I just wanted to take the moment and honor that and pay back all those debts and be like, okay, I'm 100% going to be here as a dad. I'm 100% going to be here as a husband. Anything you want to do, we can do. You want to go traveling, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And like that is probably one of the best feelings, that after all this time, I could say, okay, where do you want to go? You want to go to Europe? 5 weeks? Done. Let's do it. You want to bring your whole family along? Done. I can do that.
Yeah.
And so that's like, for me, it was like finally get to do the things I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And be committed to that. So people are like, aren't you bored being retired? I'm like, no, I'm doing this. It's my job.
Yeah.
Being retired right now is my full-time job. Being a dad right now is my full-time job.
Oh,
I'm like going to be the super dad. People are going to get sick of me at school because
Yeah,
I'm going to be there, drop off. I'm going
Yeah.
to be there to pick up. I'm at soccer practice, yelling on the sideline. I'm going to be the best dad ever.
Yeah.
So I can finally have the time to do it. And I've got no excuses.
That's so beautiful, man. I love that. I love hearing that so much because I come from an immigrant family. I've seen that with my parents. They never reached a level of success where they could give me all of these things, but I don't blame them, right? But I think for me, myself, it's like the reason why I work hard is so that I can do that in the future for my family too. And I think that's so awesome that you got the opportunity to do that. And that's great. And so you went through retirement 2023, 2024, back into the trenches, or what was that like?
So slowly getting back into the trenches. But I think having the scope of what it looks like to do a business from start to finish, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is things are going to get difficult and they're going to get easy, and it's going to be seasonal. You're going to have a pendulum swing. And I know that now. So when things are like jumping back in the trenches, instead of being 100%, I'm like 100% in a short sprint.
Gotcha.
And then I can take some time.
Yep.
And the big thing is now is like going into this next phase of life. I won't sacrifice family or health because I don't need to.
You don't need to anymore.
I don't need
That's
to.
right. That's right.
When you start out, you got to.
Yeah.
When you start a business in the beginning, it's unfortunate. You've got relationships, you want to chase success, and you've got the family stuff. In your health, you're going to have to make some sacrifices.
I agree.
That's what happens. I don't have to do that now, so I won't.
Yeah.
So I've learned that enough so that the next phase is I'm happy to do this for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like I'm sprinting. I can't do it for another second.
Yeah. Because you're going to have more mental breakdowns, physical breakdowns, and that's it, game over for you after
right.
that. And then that's why a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, they get sick, whether mentally or physically, right? Because they just push, and they can't get the break. So what's it like then? I'm very curious because I'm not at that stage just yet. Right, is to start now you guys have money, right? Because now you guys, all three of the brothers have money. You can all start your own thing now. Fantastic. Your starting point is vastly different to when you first started. Whereas, bootstrapped, and I get the bootstrap part, but now you can start, for example, you can dump a couple $1 million, couple $100,000 into starting a business and a different venture. What's the sort of mindset like now that you have another resource category to play with? Before the resources were maybe whatever tools you can find online. Now the resource is money.
Yeah.
What is that like to now start a new business based on that?
It's good and it's bad.
Okay.
So the good things is you can speed up your velocity to decision making is increased because you have cash. Yeah. So before it was like, hey, I want to do this thing, but it's going to cost X. And now we have to
calculate.
I have to do 2 or 3 things before that to get to what I really want to do because that thing's going to cost money, right? Like if I wanted to spend money on a brand, it's like, well, no, let's start at step 1 and we'll get there eventually. Yeah. Now we can just go straight to step 4 and spend the money. That's fantastic. But at the same time, the negative is that discipline, that financial discipline is actually what made you successful. Now you're giving it away because you've got money. Your decisions aren't necessarily better with money.
Interesting.
So like you can, speed is fantastic, but that discipline is what got you there.
Yep.
And it's the resourcefulness to do something without money where real magic can actually happen because you've had to go scrounge and figure out a way to do it without just dumping cash. And so you see these big companies, they'll dump cash at something and it goes nowhere.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Obviously, it wasn't going to go anywhere.
We see it so many times. And I think you guys actually did a series on it. How many businesses go raise a series A, B, C, and then at the end of it, like 6 months later,
it was just never viable.
Yeah,
but you never saw that because it got patched over by pumping money into
and that was, which was the one you guys posted, that lapel one, was it?
Yeah,
whatever that was called.
$1 raised. Billion. Chuck it in the bin.
Yeah, what a waste of money.
It's a waste of money, but that's it because the financial discipline, you figure out very quickly the signals, this isn't a viable business.
Yeah.
Because it's not making me profit so I can reinvest.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
I'm not, but if you're just dumping money and it's getting growth, but it's just purely forced on you spending money.
Yeah.
So
well, actually, that's a good one. I was actually speaking to a friend about this last week. And what's your perspective on that? Because we know a lot of the stock market businesses, the big American startups, it's all valuation based, right? Everyone's pumping money, valuation based. So they're all growing. Versus the companies out there that are maybe more focused on profit based, whereas they're not getting as big of a growth. We talked about this, previously, just very briefly. But what's your perspective on that? Because the startup scene is always, we raised this much money, now we're worth X amount. We raised based on value. We raised based on value, now we're valued out, blah. And now people have all these unicorn businesses. What's your perspective on that? Like, because I'm a big believer in obviously the cash flow and profit, but maybe it's because I haven't played the game long enough to understand the whole pump money for valuation game. What's your perspective on that now?
I think that is a time period that's coming to an end, which people used to, obviously, cash was flowing before. Interest rates were 0. You could pump money in. All of that growth was just based on the fact that
it's all fake.
It was 0, right? Yes, spending money can help you speed up certain things, but it also creates a ridiculous bloat. And like the Dropbox example where they've got a fucking chrome panda in the foyer that costs 150 grand. That's purely because you had so much money.
Yeah, it's a flex.
It's just useless. So what is happening already is there is now a turning point where people are looking at businesses. Are these actual businesses? Because the liquidity on the other end of exit or IPO starts to dry up. Like I was having a chat with a financial advisor, a guy that manages a fund on Friday, and he was like, well, there's not as many exits anymore. And there's not as much liquidity in the market and there aren't as many IPOs.
Yeah.
Well, then that's the finish line is now disappearing. So now you actually just to do a business.
You got to survive
be a business.
Real profit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It has to be a business, which is a business generates money.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So if you do anything now, it's like, and this is probably only going to get worse, most likely, with tariffs and the uncertainty in USA. that businesses will have to actually be businesses, and that's fantastic. Right, you can chuck money at them, but it's money at in the right direction, which is like, let's speed this up, but it's the model is good, the business is sound. Let's put money in and double that, but it's still continuing to be profitable, or at least close to cash flow positive. So I would like to see almost an end to that silly money season, because it created so much wastage.
Yeah, I agree. And then that's why if you look at the stock market, all these companies have some of the most horrible returns in terms of actual real money. But in terms of stock growth, it's just pumping, you know, up percentage on percentage. And that's why there's so many swings in them. But that's a very, very interesting perspective. I want to kind of turn the sort of direction towards Founders Table, because I think, you know, leading up towards the end of the podcast, I think there's something quite interesting as well that you guys are building. What was the concept behind like Founders Table and everything that you're doing there? Because I know Frank is a mean chef and, you know, he cooks a good feed from what I'm seeing. What was it like in terms of this idea? Because you're building now a new startup, or you're building new startups focused on obviously startups and founders. What's the idea behind Founders Table?
So me and Frank had a lot of discussions sort of leading up to the end of last year about what do we want to do next, and the question was always like, where do you want to see yourself? Like, who's your ultimate customer? It wasn't even like what product you're going to build, what service you're going to create. It's just, who would you like to be around?
Yep.
And we were like, well, we just want to be around people like us. It's like, founders. We just want to be. We get energy from hearing, oh, what do you do for business? I do some random blah blah blah. How much do you make? 20 million a year.
What the fuck? How?
And there's so many of those people in this country. And we're like, well, how do we just get immersed in that? Because when we were doing Realbase, we had zero network, and our customers were agents, real estate agents, which some people can say are quite prickly to deal with. I don't know.
And some agents make a shitload of money as well, though.
Yeah, but it was like, I don't really see myself being in that space for a very, very long time. Where can I be happy till I'm 80? It's being around other entrepreneurs. And so we just had a random thought. It's like, well, let's just start meeting all of them, because we don't know anyone. We know our network was approximately zero. And so Frank put a little post out on Instagram, was like, we just want to do an informal lunch for entrepreneurs. And it filled up in 10 seconds. And it was like, the next 4 events were already filled up, and we're like, well, we need a waiting list then. Let's put together a little waiting list and then put out a post and see who wants to join the waiting list. The waiting list now is like 500 people.
Yeah.
But we're like, okay, we're onto something here. And the reason we're onto something is because I think there's a big gap in this country specifically of support for entrepreneurs that isn't agenda-based.
Agreed.
So like, if I go to a club, yes, there's other entrepreneurs there. It's great networking, whatever. But there's always like an underlying agenda.
Coaching calls.
I'm paying, or I'm gonna pay, or I'm something. There's someone else there. So we wanted just to first. It was literally for us to meet people.
Yep.
That was the first goal. And they were like, well, no, there's something actually here where we can expand and create themed events and stuff like that. Purely just based around, what does it look like to take Australia from being mining property services based country and push it into like, what does it look like where we've got entrepreneurs like they have in Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
What does it look like if we like model ourselves on the USA? Like, Silicon Valley wasn't Silicon Valley 100 years ago.
Agreed.
It was not real. It didn't exist.
Yeah.
Now it's like this thing where it's like tech, Silicon Valley, billion-dollar businesses. We don't really have that here.
Yeah.
So I think one of the problems is we don't really have people meeting each other, because that's how magic happens. You're either meeting another entrepreneur that you can like, the next business you can start together, you can fund them, you could get advice from. There's collaboration there. I don't know if you've seen that PayPal market infographic.
Yep.
You got like people that started PayPal.
Yep.
You've got a tiny group of people. There's like, I don't even know, it's like 30 blokes, 30 people around a circle, about 150 different businesses, billion-dollar, huge businesses, just from this tiny group of people.
Yep. That's right.
And that's like magic. But we don't have that here because we've got this like tall poppy thing. People think they're bragging if they've got, if you say like how much revenue you do and you tell your mate I'm doing 20 mil, they're like, whoa, you're rich.
You're
like,
fucking rich, bro.
It's like, they don't understand.
Yeah. Lunch is on you.
They think you're bragging.
Exactly.
I can't believe you was bragging. It's like, no, there's no environment for you to be celebrated.
Yeah. I think that's powerful, man. I've always believed in that. And, I've done networking events and stuff like that myself as well. I think it's so fascinating that, people like yourself out there, see that as well. And I think a lot of founders understand. Everyone's always saying, oh, it's such a small world, but like, I feel like I'm so alone in this. I don't get to meet a lot of people. I don't know other people doing what I'm doing. That's some of like the most common things I hear. Like if I'm coaching a business owner or I'm helping someone's door start up, it's always like, oh, I feel like you're the only person that I know. And I found you through TikTok or Instagram. It's like, you're the only one. And just follow your journey.
Yeah.
And so like I get that completely, and I think what you guys are doing is awesome. I see it. I've seen a lot of my friends on your stuff, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So founders table side of things is great. What's the sort of vision now? Like connecting people, obviously meeting, networking. Is there a level beyond that?
Yeah.
What do you guys want to do?
So like the long-term play for us is we want to be like a founder-led venture capital firm. So when you look at venture capital in Australia, it's tiny compared to America. So we think that needs to change because that's how you'll get great businesses. Like I can go to get $1 million loan for a house, no problem tomorrow. But if I wanted to get $1 million loan to start a business or get venture funding, I'm gonna struggle, right? So we think that needs to change. What we've noticed as well is like what there is missing is like that personality behind that venture fund, right? You can't really name people. It's like, faceless kind of corporations. Whereas we think there's the big play is like bringing people in at, that you want to invest in, but you as a founder are part of the process and a kind of identifiable face of the business, because you can get then better deal flow. And so that's for us, like we've already invested in multiple companies through the Founders Table.
Yep. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, because again, another thing is like as I'm an investor, I can sit with someone and they can do the perfect 1 hour polished pitch. Yeah. I'm getting the most amazing version of them in that 1 hour, and I've got to make a decision and get the numbers and all that stuff right. But a lot of the times you're betting on the person. Through an event like the Founders Table, I can spend an hour with you, get you back a couple of weeks later, more time. Eventually, I like know you very well, and I'm like, you're going to be successful. And then you invest, right? And you've got people on the top end of the Founders Table as well that are looking to deploy capital. Yeah. So we're bringing people together that are like, oh, no, I'm an investor. And they're sitting across the table from someone who needs capital.
Cash. Yeah.
It's like you're creating magic.
I love that.
So that's really our long-term play, like where I want to see myself in like 10, 20 years.
Venture VC stuff. No, I think that's cool. I think there needs to be more of it in Australia, and I think the communities are quite small here. Coming from an Asian background myself, obviously, I know a lot of Asian founders and stuff like that. And the Asian founder world is also quite small. I think everyone that's someone kind of knows each other as well, to some extent. So it's very interesting. But the thing is like bringing everyone together to connect, and I think there's always power in network. Yeah. So what you guys are doing, absolutely stand for. I think that's amazing. So I think let's wrap up for today. It's a busy day for both of us. So I want to ask you this one question to wrap it all up, right? For us in 0.01, it's all about unlocking the different cheat codes of life. You've now gone through a phase where you've gone through a ton of ups and downs. You've gone through massive wins, massive losses, and a huge emotional turmoil just within a span of probably 5 years of your career. What's the sort of cheat code that you found during that time that now, as you're going, and pretty relevant for you now, as you're going to build a new venture, that's going to allow you to potentially double your results by half the time that you're going to get there?
The biggest cheat code coming out the other end, I've realized it's very, very late in life. It's who you know can really speed things up. And I was always one of those people who's like, no, it's my skill, my effort, it's me doing something. It is not that. It is who can you get involved with that can help you. So I think entrepreneurialism is a team sport. And like one of the things I got lucky with obviously is having two brothers. That was fantastic. But now even going a step further, it's like anything we do, it's like, who can help me with that? Who can I bring in? Who do I know? And who you know will directly impact your success. And so having a network of people around you to help you, or that you can also help, that's the cheat code. That's the thing that's just like, of course.
I love that. Well, that's very, very powerful. So upgrade your network, guys, and then one day you'll join Jacques and Frank at the Founders Table. So thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks,
and let's rock and roll. I'm keen to see where you guys go this year.
Thank you.
Exciting. Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed that episode of 0.01. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along on all our socials at 0.01 Podcast to watch all of the shorts again. We release an episode every single week, and we hope you will join us as we continue to explore the minds of those who make up the 0.01%. Until next time, keep hustling. I'm your host, Alan Fu. I'll see you on the next episode.